Okay, Nikki, thanks so much for joining us today for the AI CX podcast. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Honestly, it's like 110 degrees here in Chicago, and I think the AC just went off. Just telling you, I should
Whoa.
have told you that before, but I'm ignoring it right now. But if you see me sweating later, it's not because of the interview; it's just because of
Okay,
the
that's fair.
AC. That's
That's
all
fair.
fine. So, Sticky Digital is the name of your retention marketing agency. Let's kind of start there. Like, give us the pitch of Sticky Digital first.
Yeah, so Sticky Digital, we're a retention marketing agency, female founded, based out of San Diego. Myself and my two co-founders met years and years and years ago at one of the largest Shopify agencies when there was only a handful of Shopify agencies. And after working there and then be recruited by a brand incubator and doing that, building Shopify brands for a little while, we decided to sort of like break off and do it on our own because we realized massive gap in the industry was in the retention marketing space. Everybody was focused at that time. This was pre-COVID. So everybody at
Yeah.
that time was focused on dumping money into acquisition. And it's like, oh, well, if you do that, I don't really need to focus on bringing them back because people will come back. And really, like, we knew that wasn't true for like long-term game of your customer. So that's when we started Sticky Digital. We were like, you actually have to put focus on bringing customers back, which is all we do. So retention marketing, and it's not just email and SMS. It's sort of like your entire
Mhm.
customer retention journey on site. So we focus on everything from email and SMS all the way down to like subscription, loyalty, rewards, tying into your CX to make sure your CX is also tied into these other channels to make sure that like you're messaging your customers the right way. And our biggest goal is to really drive one-time purchases into repeat customers.
That's awesome. I'll definitely go into plenty of those things. I want to hear a little bit about, I think it's BVA, right? Is that the
Yeah.
agency we were talking about? So I'll go into that in a little bit. Um, Tell me really quickly, not really quickly, we've got some time here. What are like the bread and butter companies or clients that you work with that are just a great fit for you?
Yep. So anybody that's like on Shopify doing over 5 million, we've seen the most success in brands that are doing over $10 million. Shopify, though, backed because we all have a very strong background in Shopify. So
Okay.
we can sort of like dig in. If we see issues within any sort of tool, we know where to go within Shopify and then how that sort of like correlates and how those apps work together. And really, like a lot of our customers are beauty, home goods, fashion, and apparel space. Beauty
Okay.
is also like not just cosmetics, but like we're talking skincare, we're talking nail products, like anything really that a female would like. I guess it's a female founded agency. Like we've just sort of like
Sure.
ended up there, not by design, but it's just sort of like happened that way for us.
And are these type of, and kind of excuse me for my ignorance, but are these type of companies too like founder led, one, two employees that are like looking to like it's like either we can bring in an agency or we can hire internally a couple people or like kind of what's the gist of like these what it looks like internally for these companies.
Yeah, I will say quite a few of them that we work with today started as that. Like they sort of like brought us in early growth, like just
Okay.
knowing that their retention channels had a lot of work and were just like they knew that something was off. And so they found us, we found them. And so we've sort of grown with them. So a lot of these companies that started as sort of like founder backed, founder was making the decisions, founders were on all of the calls. They now actually have grown to have like an e-com person, marketing people that we're now speaking to as well.
Mm.
So they have grown. We also do though work with large brands that there's a lot of people that we speak to. So like there's a VP of digital, there's a marketing person, there's an e-com director, there's like a salesperson, there's like ops and retail. Like we talk to everybody. So it really does just depend, but we have started with like these really small mom and paws, you will, like e-com stores and helped them grow and scale. And one of the best parts about Sticky Digital that's my favorite is like we don't just focus on retention of a brand's customer, but what's important to us is focusing on like the retention of our actual customers too. So our clients,
Yeah.
anybody that we take on board as a client, like our biggest thing is that we want to keep them on for the long haul and grow with them. Because then we learn your business intimately and like we are just become an extension of your team. And I will say we've gotten very lucky that we've been able to do that with a lot of our brands.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, that's really insightful. And any other Any clients top of your mind that you want to call out, like that are some of your favorite clients, or
Yeah.
no?
One of our, I will just say, like, probably one of our longest standing clients that we've worked with from the beginning, that like took a chance on us, that we've grown with over, we've worked with them for over 3.5 years, is U Beauty. They're wonderful, skincare company backed by science, very different, very unique. And I will just say, like, they are one of the kindest teams that we also work with, and we just
That's
adore
amazing.
them. Yeah, we just
Yeah.
adore them.
It's so easy when it's both ways and you're just
Yeah.
bringing like kindness into the conversation. It's actually like fruitful and
Yeah,
things, good things happen, obviously.
yeah, exactly.
Um, okay. And if you don't mind, like diving into them a little bit, like what were some of their challenges when they first came to you?
Yeah, I one of their founders came to us, and both of their founders, but one of their founders came to us, and she was just like, I know something's off here and something's not working. And when they first launched, they launched and they acquired a whole bunch of what we considered samples, right? Like a whole bunch of people, they wanted people to try their product, rightfully so. So they
Hmm.
were handing out free samples in the beginning so that people could try it and see that it actually worked. But what
Physical, like meaning digitally, like you're on the website and then sign up for
And
a
then,
free sample and we'll
yes,
mail it to you.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And you got like a free, like 3-day sample. And it was like a wonderful way for them to enter the market because they did get a hold of a bunch of people. And we've sort of like turned that potentially like one time purchaser to get the free sample into a long term customer. And I will say they also have a wonderful retention where their subscriptions perform very well. And when we first started with them, they didn't have subscriptions and they wanted to launch subscriptions. So like we helped them along that journey. And
Mm.
we sort of helped them build their loyalty program. They didn't have that. And so we helped them build that along the way because they also, because their product is so unique and science backed,
Yeah.
they really have a loyal customer base and they know how to speak to their customers. It was just figuring out the right timing and the messaging in order to do that. Like they knew intimately their customer, they just didn't know at what timing to deliver the messaging to those customers.
Okay. But you said you added on subscriptions when you were, or as a, sorry, you added on subscriptions to their service. So there was like, it wasn't just optimizations. There was like building foundational stuff within the company to really grow their user base.
Yeah, because one of the things that we like to focus on at Sticky Digital is sort of like your tech stack. So across
Yeah.
all of our clients, we don't just make recommendations for your email channel and your SMS channel. Like we look at it holistically and we say like, hey, you're on this app. We've seen this app work really well for X, Y, and Z reasons, and this ties in really well to this other app that you're using, and this ties in really well to this. So it is sort of like a tech stack optimization that we do as well. So even if you do have some of these channels that are currently running, we audit it as sort of like your retention agency and we tell you like
Right.
you're missing these key components of it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like
That's
how we can also offer and help build subscription programs, loyalty programs, membership programs, things like that.
okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking me on that journey. Like
Yeah.
I think, well, I really want to keep on going down that, but let me kind of take a step back before we get any further because I really wanted to ask you about BVA, and I think it was purchased by someone. It's like now another company, right? Or
Yeah.
do you know
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah. It was, they partnered with Zaner or acquired Zaner, and then
That's
they were
right.
both acquired by the Stable, who has now been
Stable.
acquired by Accenture.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Okay. So I don't know too much about it, but you said they were like really one of the first Shopify kind of agencies.
Yeah.
And when you started there, you like what was kind of like the aha moment for you that was like, wow, this is like an industry that's growing like crazy, or this is just a subject that's super interesting. Like, do you recall like was there a certain time when you're at BVA that it kind of like just snapped for you?
Yeah, I will say that. So I was previously before that at a Magento agency, and
Okay, you're on the
I
Magento
was
side.
doing. Yeah, I was on the Magento side of things. And when I was recruited by the CEO at the time, Dylan, who now has his own company, Inveterate, if you're on LinkedIn, you know Dylan, definitely know Dylan. He contacted me and was like, "Hey, like we need your help doing agency marketing for the agency. It's this platform called Shopify." And I remember sort of like doing my research. Obviously, like I'm in my early 20s. I'm like paying my own rent, right? I'm like, I can't sort of like go down this rabbit hole where it may not exist. So I started doing my research on Shopify and BVA, and I like pulled up BVA, and it was like a landing page of a website for the agency. But like there was no information. I was like, I don't know what you guys do. I know that you build websites. Like, I don't really know what Shopify is. I'd never heard of it because I came from this Magento world. Long story short, after I started working there, I was employee number 8. So I was like one of the very first, and my co-founder was employee number 7. And so we were like some of the first. And I remember sitting there, and my desk was right next to the CEO's at the time, Dylan's. And he was on all of these sales calls, sort of like doing these pitches with these brands, being like, Shopify, it's the next greatest thing. Like, you need to get on Shopify. And he was like, really, I don't want to say easily, because I know it did not come easy to him, but he was able to move people to Shopify with this like sales pitch and basically talk about just
from where? From Magento?
From Magento, most of them from Magento. And so I just remember sitting there listening to him, and I think that like the biggest aha moment was just listening to his pitch and listening to how easy Shopify was in comparison to Magento. And because I sat next to him, I was hearing it every single day. And then once we started growing and they hired a salesperson, the salesperson then sat next to me, who he's now one of my best friends. And like, he also doesn't work at BVA anymore, but he's still one of my best friends. And I remember him doing the pitch all day. And so it was just really having like an intimate touch on how Shopify was growing and seeing the brands that were like taking the leap of faith, that I was like, this is actually something huge. And I think like Shopify did something really well, and they sort of like helped these like first, I think there was like 7 core Shopify agencies in the beginning. And they wanted them to win, and they did everything they could to like refer business to these 7 agencies, BVA being one of them. And we got to see all of these like amazing projects being built, and we started seeing all these apps coming up in the ecosystem. And like .po was one of our first partners, and like I started working in partnerships. And
when you started, sorry, really quickly, I want to touch on this. When you started, were you tactically like in the Shopify system? Like, was that like your day-to-day operations? Or no, you weren't even touching Shopify?
I was doing marketing, and I was like hearing the CEO talk about it very intimately. And the CEO saw something in me. Dylan saw something in me, and he was like, he pulled me into our conference. We had one conference room. He didn't have an office, so he pulled me into this conference room, and he's like, you need to go to partnerships. You can't be doing marketing for the agency. You need to go to partnerships. And I was literally just like, what the hell is that? Like, I don't even know what does that even consist of? And he saw something in me that I didn't know in myself. And he just kind of like threw me into partnerships. And I was like, okay. And he was like, don't worry, like we'll learn together, basically. Right. But like, we need somebody dedicated to this channel in order for us to grow. And they invested in me and got me a mentor and like helped me sort of like build this ecosystem for BVA. And on LinkedIn yesterday, I was just talking, there was a comment that was posted on LinkedIn yesterday, and somebody was like, Nikki was the GOAT of partnerships. Like, if you have questions, like ask her. And it really is because I got to grow as BVA grew in this partnership channel. And what that consisted of was me being in the day-to-day of Shopify and learning how all of these tech stack optimizations worked together, and how every single time we got a new client and this client needed to do X, Y, and Z, the team would come to me and be like, what app can I use? And does it fit with X, Y, and Z? And I was able to like really, really learn the technologies and the apps in the ecosystem, which really got me fired up and like helped me get to where I am today. Like it pushed me to this place.
Well, while we're recording on the call, like, can I at least get your words that like you'll help Alexandra and I out when it comes to partnerships? Because like, sounds like you know.
Honestly, like where I still do it at Sticky Digital. I love it. I can't imagine letting go of partnerships because I'm just a partner person. And I will help anybody that wants the help, because I think, and I was just talking to my husband about this yesterday because he's in the ecosystem as well and in partnerships. And it is such a hole still in agencies. Agencies still have not figured out how to scale their partner program, which sort of leaves the technologies in a bad place, because then you guys don't have support on the agency side. But because the agencies don't know how to scale it, it leaves the agencies in a bad place of not knowing where to go when they need the help at the technology. So it's like there really is still a gap. And I think it's something that does need to be worked on agency-wise, which is also the reason why I will not let go of it at Sticky Digital, because I know it very well. And I really do think that good agencies, the backbone is a partnership, a good partnership with technologies.
And the thing is, if you can talk to and we're going on a tangent here, but I think this is super interesting. Like, if you can talk to about the technology, like really talk to the technology itself, right? Because I mean, I'm a marketer, right? So I understand there are two different types of like just talk. There's like the marketing high level talk, and then you actually have the knowledge of really what the product can do really well that others can't. And just listening to you, Nikki, it sounds like you can actually, you know, the marketing talk, but you also know like really the insights into how other technologies work with other technologies. And you
Yeah.
may not need like a third party to connect one and two. No, this is a real native integration between the two, and they'll talk really well and it'll work perfectly. And tell me if you think otherwise, but like the only way that you actually figure that out is through getting your hands dirty in the experience and actually connecting the dots between one and the other. Is that right?
No, that's totally true. And I think like you can't just take no as the answer, if that makes sense. So like what I learned at BVA, which we still do at Sticky Digital, is if you don't think that it's possible, you can't just stop there. Like you have to go to the technology and ask, because there's probably a way to make it happen if it hasn't already been built out, or maybe it's on the roadmap, or it was sort of like digging into it and figuring it out. And if you didn't like, there was always a solution. You just had to find it. And so you had
Yeah.
to be willing to sort of like look for the solution and not just take no for an answer.
Yeah. And now with technology, like honestly, like I think there's always a solution. Like you're not going to be in a place where it's like, no, we can't figure it out. Like
Yeah.
now with the tool set that's out there, the third party apps that are out there that can connect things that can't even think about being connected, like you
Yeah.
can figure it out. And so that's kind of right what makes it fun at the end of the day, honestly.
Totally. And I like, that's one of the things that we love at Sticky. And this is even when we get into a situation where it's like, how does this work at Sticky Digital? Or we're working with an app that we've never worked with before. I will ask my team, even though I may not be on the account, I'll ask my team, I'll say like, can I do it? Because I want to learn, and I
Yeah.
want to continuously like learn how these things are working together. And like, I'll record a video once I figure it out so that my team can know. But like, I genuinely want to know how these pieces are working together, because that's how we're going to scale our agency.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me kind of move on now from BVA to currently Sticky Digital. So, like the one thing that kind of comes to the top of my mind when we first started talking about retention marketing is, I think it's the elephant in the room. So, how do clients measure your value at the end of the day? And what's your recommendation when you have those conversations with the clients?
Yeah, it's funny because I think when somebody hears like retention marketing, like, oh, your agency does retention marketing, they're like, cool, you're going to send an email for me, right? Like that, like there's sort of like the revenue through Klaviyo. And it's like, well, it's actually more than just the revenue through Klaviyo. So we actually like to look at like specific metrics to know if like we're moving the needle. And if it is a client that we're looking at Klaviyo or even Attentive or SMS Bump, there are certain metrics. Like you want to look at, you can't focus on your open rate today because the open rate doesn't make sense, right? It's inflated.
Right. Vanity metric.
Yeah, nobody really knows what to do with that. But you do want to look at like your click-through rates. You need to look at like your segments that you're building and see like what are you targeting your right segments? Are the people that are coming to your emails and clicking through, are those the appropriate people? You need to look at like your placed order rate. You can look at your overall revenue, but that is also skewed based on how high your product value is or your AOV is per purchase.
Right.
Like, because if you're selling a baseball cap for $40, your revenue through Klaviyo is going to look significantly different than somebody that's selling a skincare product for $200. So you really should look at like your placed order rates and things like that through Klaviyo. Like that's sort of like what makes the most impact. And then in terms of like Attentive or SMS Bump, revenue is part of it, but you want to look at people that like click through your text messages. Are you segmenting properly and getting to the right people? And are they going to where you want them to go? I had an instance today where I was like on a website doing biz dev, cold outreach. And I always like will go to the site before I send an email because I really want to know sort of how their business is set up.
Yeah.
And I went on my desktop and I filled out the email and SMS submission on this brand. And I got a text message that was like, here's your discount code. I clicked on the text message. I went back on mobile to their site and I got the pop-up again for me to fill out the email and the SMS. And you're like...
And you filled it out again.
And I filled it out again. As a user, like it doesn't make sense. And if I wasn't doing this for a biz dev reason, I would be like, get out of here. Like, this is irritating to me,
Yeah.
right? Like, you also, outside of like metrics, you need to also just think about the customer journey and think about like, how are you going to not piss these people off so that they come back a second time after making a purchase? Or because people always window shop before they make a purchase from your brand, how are you not going to piss them off the first time so that they're willingly going to come back and have an enjoyable experience the second
Yeah.
time?
So do you have I'm thinking like a template, a scorecard, whatever it is, which is like, here are all the different touch points of your client, your brand that's happening right now, and do you go through that exercise with them? Is that something that you do in your agency?
Yep. Every single client, we do an audit. Every single client. It doesn't matter if you're doing email, SMS, work with us for CRO for like conversion optimization on site. Every single brand that we touch, we go through this audit phase, because what we think is impactful to your business and is rated on our scorecard and our roadmap, you as business owner or e-com director, maybe you're not being marked by that, right? So like we may say like your list growth is down, and they might say, well, I'm not being tracked on list growth. I'm being tracked on purchases, or I'm being tracked on sort of like revenue. So we have to align on it, but we will always do an audit to a scorecard roadmap, because we also need to make sure that we're on the same page.
And what is something that always comes up the same way, no matter what audit you do with what brand?
The segmentation piece always comes up. It's so interesting to me how little people actually know about segmentation. I feel like people are either far left or far right on segmentation. Like, you're like, I'm not going to segment at all, and I'm going to just go to everybody. Or you have the people that are like, I'm only going to message people that have been active for the last 30 days. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you do either, really? Right?
Yeah.
But like,
is there a time like where you suggest segmentation? Like, if you're really early on, you should still be doing the best you can with segmentation, compared to if you're even a later stage company too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody should be focused on the segmentation piece, because there is what we've seen is there is a real problem with people over segmenting. So like, brands over segment because they don't want to over message their clients. Or customers. They don't want to send the wrong message to the wrong people. They only want to, because it's this deliverability thing that's everybody's talking about right now. Like, you want to hit the inboxes. And I don't really think people know the impact of the deliverability. So they're just too scared, right?
Yeah.
So we have brands that just won't message people because they don't want to impact their deliverability. And it's like, that's not actually how this works. So it really is that segmentation piece, regardless of stage in your business. Like, that is the biggest place that you can focus on that will guaranteed make a change in your business if you're not doing it well. And I'm sure there are brands without an agency that are doing it well because you have an expert, but there are all of these other brands that aren't working with anybody that focuses in retention, and they're not doing that segmentation piece appropriately.
And the segmentation is really, really important because of messaging, or is it because of the number of touch points, the channel, and like all above? Like, what is it about segmentation where it's like, well, now you get to optimize X because of this?
It's everything. So segmentation piece is important because of the messaging piece, so that you're making sure that you're hitting these people at the right time when they want to be messaged or need to be messaged. But the segmentation piece can also help you make better business decisions. So like, if you know that your customers are purchasing X product, or all of these people, you have a segment of these people that purchase this product first, like, why wouldn't you make that sort of like your hero product in all of your messaging to people to acquire them for first time purchases, and relay that to your ads team? And like, there's all of these different things that you can do with segments that will benefit the rest of the business. Some of our clients, we work really closely with their CX teams, and their CX teams will come to us and say like, hey, we're getting a lot of comments or questions on X, Y, and Z. How can we help that? Like, how can we prevent that from happening? And we can make changes in the segmentation. We can tool the segmentation so that it's hitting the right people or excluding certain people, but we don't know unless the feedback loop is there.
Right. Oh, super interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move on, just because we only have so much time here, and I kind of want to get to your thoughts on, I think, what we call this series, which is like the AI and CX series, but it kind of all goes back to the beginning. So have you heard from your clients or even just your network the emphasis and the importance of AI? And are you starting to get those questions yourself of like, hey, how can I take advantage of what used to be a product functionality now added with some sort of AI functionality? Like, are you starting to hear that yourself as well?
Yeah, and I think it's really important to talk about because there is, especially when it comes to retention, at what point do you use AI versus a human, right? Like there is a very fine line between those two because you want to keep your customers coming back, but you want them to feel like the brand is being authentic and trying to genuinely help them.
Yeah.
So I was just at a Recharge event last week, and we were talking about this at the Recharge event at a roundtable with merchants. It's like, at what point do you switch from the merchants were asking? At what point do you switch from your bot that's saying like, "Hey, like looks like you need help," pop up to actually like having a customer service person reach out and say like, "Hey, I saw that you needed something. Is there something that I can help you with?"
Mm-hmm.
And so it is becoming a very popular topic in conversation because, and I
Do you have
think
an answer to that or
I do,
no?
but I
Okay.
think
I mean, now is the perfect time to hear it, or do you not? You want to keep it quiet?
I
Quiet.
think I'm popular opinion though, to be honest with
I
you.
love to hear it though, because I think I have one too. So I'm curious what you say.
My unpopular opinion is like, I hate the AI piece. I hate it.
Okay.
I do think, let me back up because my co-founders would be like, why did you say that? I think there is a time and a place for everything, right? Like if a bot can respond to you and say like, "Thank you for your feedback, reach out to customer service," I think that that's totally fine. If
Sure.
a customer is looking for a size guide and a bot can respond and say like, "Here's our size guide," I think that that's totally fine. But I think like when a customer is really wanting feedback or like product information, they're asking because they want it for themselves. And I think like a lot gets lost in just trying to send people down a path with bots. You're
Yeah.
not really listening to the customer. And like, how many of us, and this has definitely happened to everybody, how many of us have gone into a chat and just started typing help, 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 because like you just want to get past all of the
Well,
automation.
it's like the IVR in the phone system, right? It's like no, zero, zero,
Zero,
zero.
zero,
I need to
zero,
talk to
zero.
someone. Yeah,
Yes. I do it all the time. I literally
I
was
do
on.
too. I think that's the cheat code. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe it's not the cheat code.
Yeah, but I genuinely am the unpopular opinion because I have seen some of our brands, and I will say one of our brands does a very great job of using a bot to respond to say like, "Hey, this is so and so. How can I help you?" And then as soon as that person responds, it actually goes to a live person. So
Yeah,
they make it seem like it is a live person when it's a bot and sort of like weed people out that way. And I
yeah.
think that that is sort of like the fine line and it's acceptable at that point.
Well, I got news for you. That's not a unpopular opinion, I think. But I will take that snippet, like Alexandra on this call. Take that snippet of like, I don't like AI. Like that should definitely be in the front of this whole podcast about AI and CX. But like seriously though, I agree with you. I think I'm just going to throw my side, which I've thought about the last few weeks now, which is I really think it comes down to the founder at the end of the day and the brand, because I think that there's really no right or wrong answer. It's just like what's your brand value and what do you want it to be? Like I think there's certain brands that like you have to talk to someone. Like and it's like that's the style, that's kind of the just who the brand is. Like you're going to talk to someone as soon as you reach out. And I think there's certain brands too that are just no. Everything's an AI experience. It's all about like right now. Like that's part of the CX. It's part of like just brand, right? And I think if the founder can help identify that in the very beginning of what they really like, and then it's so much easier to solve those problems than with AI or solve those problems with without AI, because I think you can do both.
I think too the issue is a lot of brands, and I will say some of the celebrity backed brands I think are the worst when it comes to this, is because
Oof, hot
obviously
take.
the hot take,
Sorry.
the celebrities obviously have the voice, right? Like they're reaching a ton of people.
Yeah.
But my biggest cringe whenever I am using any of these like celebrity backed brands is like when I get a text message or an email that's like, "Hey, it's so and so," like insert famous person's name. I'm like, nobody actually believes this, right? Like, why are we doing it? Like, wouldn't it be more impactful for
Wait,
you?
that's not true. Oh no.
You
I've
know
been
what I mean?
talking to Michael Jordan this whole time. Oh man.
Right? But wouldn't it
Yeah.
be more impactful if like Michael Jordan's CX team reached out to you and said like, "Hey, this is so and so. I work at blah blah blah. Can I
Yeah,
help
I
you?"
just want a real person.
Real
Yeah.
person. Like I know that so and so is not sending me a personal text message from a 6-digit short code.
Yes.
So I think like that to me, like that is also a cringe moment because I think brands are like, no, we really want the famous person's name here. We really want X, Y, and Z. And it's like, but it's not believable and it's not going to help you in conversion because people know that that's not actually true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, an easy way too to solve this is like it's all about like again, as a marketer's opinion, sometimes it's like, all right, it's a guessing game. Like, what should we do in this situation? When it's like, you can almost ask them, like, do you want to talk to someone or do you want to talk to a bot that can maybe get you the answer faster?
Yep, exactly.
I've seen that as like as a good indicator too. It's like, it's okay to ask. Like, everyone knows now that they're talking to bots. So do you
Right.
want to talk to a bot?
Right. But if you have somebody going help, 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 0000, like get them to the person because clearly they don't want the bots.
No, it's about like the use case too. Like so a couple of weeks ago, well, just last week, I had plans to travel to Maui, and that was obviously canceled. And it's a not to go into it, but terrible tragedy what happened there. And I had to talk to a resort, right? To like, hey, this is not like we'll have to get a refund or like how is this going to work out? And that's exactly what it's like 000 like help help like there's going to be no bot that I'm going to talk to right now that can help me get the refund
Right.
because this is like such a catastrophic event.
Yeah.
And it was like there's certain businesses out there that didn't have that ability. It's like no
Yep.
chat. We'll try to figure it out in chat. It's like we need to figure out a better way to do this. So let me turn it around to even outside of chat and outside of email, really quick. You talked about segmentation too. Have you seen certain AI functionality, and have you used any AI functionality like internally, like with even segmentation, like any sort of exercises that you can think of that like has been really helpful in your point of view with AI?
Yeah, there's actually a couple of AI segmentation tools that their business today is built on sort of like integrating with Klaviyo and helping you figure out like what your first time purchaser is purchasing, if they're purchasing with coupon code versus not coupon code, like helping you sort of make heads or tails of all of these segments. There are some really great ones in the market today that I think are really brand specific. So I don't think all of them would work for every type of brand. But one of them is obviously Repeat. Repeat works very well. They sort of like have this AI segmentation builder that we're using for one of our clients. And there's also something like Bark AI, which does the exact same thing. AI
Okay.
segmentation builder. I am all about testing it, right? Because sometimes you will find great value in it. And sometimes you're like, they didn't find anything that we didn't already know. And I think the best part about most of these apps is there's like a 30-day free trial because I think there are a lot of brands that they just don't know this piece.
Yeah.
And so signing up for the 30-day free trial, you will be able to make a little bit of headway with like what that segmentation looks like.
Okay. Um, I'll just ask this just because it's top of mind. What about like, are you or even brands that you work with concerned at all about like data being imported into a third party system like that? Do you get that, or is it not as big of a concern right now?
No, it's not as big of a concern. I think most of the time because all of these apps are working from sort of like within Klaviyo, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of people find peace in sort of like this NDA piece. Like, they're having all of these other technologies sign NDA saying like you're not going to take the customer data. And I will say that we've never, knock on wood, had an issue with it. We've never had a client have an issue with it in terms of these apps having an issue with the customer data. Um, so yeah, I don't really think that people should be concerned about that, especially if they're a legitimate business.
Yeah. I had to ask it because it's usually like at least I've heard it. It's definitely a topic of conversation because there's so many different apps kind of coming out there now. And then it's, what are you actually signing up for? And then if they're using your data, what are they using your data for and so forth.
Yeah, and I think too, like we just recently did an audit for a brand that like they were very heavy on like the privacy piece and the customer privacy. And like they were even really hesitant to have us even added to their Klaviyo because they were afraid of having additional people that didn't work for them in there. And really the saddest part when you take a step back and you look at it from a higher level is like most brands are concerned about that because they've had an issue with it previously or somebody has done them dirty. Like people aren't just concerned about privacy just for the fun of it. You know what I mean? Like, so they've probably been burned by an agency. They've probably been burned by a technology, or if they haven't, they know somebody that has been. And I think that that's really where like the mistrust is at.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, I think like, oh my gosh, we've talked for a while on this topic, but I just want to say thank you, Nikki. Like this was a great flowing conversation. Again, like I told Nikki beforehand, like I don't have a list of questions here that like I want to get through here. It's just kind of like where Nikki takes it. And I think we kind of touched on a whole bunch of everything. So thank you for your time, Nikki. Maybe one more thing just on top of my mind. Is there a brand, like just to give you a couple seconds here to share more about Sticky Digital, is there a brand that like you see out in the wild that you're like, ooh, I want for a Sticky Digital client? Is there someone that like you've seen their retention or you've seen like their emails and you're like, oh, we can really fix that?
I don't necessarily think it's like we can really fix it, but I think like there's just brands at Sticky that like we want to work with just because we love the brands like ourselves.
Yes.
A lot of them, because all three of us are moms, so a lot of it is kid products or things that have to do with kids. We love Lalo. We think that it's like a great brand. I don't think that they have anything wrong with their retention, but like brands like that. And there's a couple of influencer backed brands that like myself and my other co-founder, we follow them and we think that they are on an amazing mission. And so we love to align with brands that are on amazing missions. So like DV Official and Nudes. It's all about the mission and really like aligning with brands that want to just help people.
I think I just have to throw this out there. I think if you venture into kids' shoes, I think that would be super interesting just because in my experience, I think my wife and I were just talking about this. I think we play. Is that the PLAE? Yeah, like we've bought them and it's like one of those like every year or year and a half, it's like we need another shoe. And if they actually would reach out at the right time with like certain promos, it would be an easy win. But like we go back to the board and say, hey, what shoes should we get this time? So I'm just throwing that out there. If that's,
I agree with you. Kids' shoes is huge. Kids' feet change, especially between 0 to 1. They're changing rapidly, and then post 1, it's like I don't know.
And we're not bringing the kids to a store anytime soon. Just like it's just crazy. So we're gonna buy online. So I think that's a perfect.
Well, and I just picked out a kid's shoe brand today because I was like, hey, as a mom, you don't have SMS. And like, as a mom, like I'm purchasing when people text message me because my kids are running around like psychos. So I agree with you.
There you go. Well, we'll leave it there. Let's see what happens. Maybe next time we'll talk, and then I want to see how many shoe brands you got on.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, Nikki, thank you so much for your time. And this is AICX, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.